Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our What's New and Coming Up with Lipedema. And I'm so happy to be here with you today. And it's me and Siobhan. Um, uh, um, Leslyn is at a medical appointment. She had a medical appointment today. Anyway, she's not here. So the two of us, and we were talking about what we wanted to talk about and share with you guys. We have some stuff coming up, but we'll save that for the end. What um what I was most curious about and really wanted to um have a chance to schmooze about was our very own dear Siobhan's citizen science work. She's citizen sciencing it and fasting. And I want to hear all about it because she look at her. Doesn't she look lovely? Her skin is really nice and she just looks great. And so I'm like, all right, let's hear more. And also, it's easier. So, hi, Karen from Michigan, and it's sunny there. Let us know who's here and where you're coming in from. Siobhan's coming in from Colorado, and I'm in Boston. And I really love my background, but the problem is it shows red through my hair because I have curly hair. That's why. Because I have curly
Yeah.
hair. So
And
anyway,
yeah,
hi.
let us know what the weather is like where you're at because we
Yeah,
always like to know what's going on.
yeah.
Currently, it is starting to cool down, so it's still very sunny, still 70s and 80s for the most part. But over the weekend, we're supposed to dip into the 50s and 60s, which is very exciting. Oh,
And
and we've
Chris is
got,
here from Peterborough, New Hampshire, and Cynthia from Nashville, listening while she's running errands. I do that all the time. Or I used to. Oh my God, the foliage is astonishing. Oh my God, here too. So I'm on the lake, right? Okay, you're gonna. Oh, you can't see. I have to change the settings so I can show you the foliage. Um,
yeah, and we've also got
can you
Marsha
see the
Black.
foliage?
Oh, yeah, look at that. That is a beautiful view.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful? I love autumn. That's my favorite time of the year. And then we have who? Marsha Black. Hi.
Yeah, Marsha Black from Kentucky. We got Susan from Minnesota. Warmer than usual, waiting for hip surgery on Wednesday.
Uh,
Good thoughts going towards you for that surgery. And Karen said it's about 75 degrees here. So, yeah, getting some fall like temperatures. Good. Yeah, I
yeah.
was telling my mom recently, next year I'll probably schedule my visit back at my parents' place in the fall because they have much better fall leaves and fall colors than Colorado, I feel like, because they're out in the
Mhm.
Midwest.
Yeah, it's definitely not summer anymore. I'm in my hoodie. I'm in my Shaban. This is my Shaban gear. Siobhan turned me on to these. These are these unbelievable blanket type things that you wear, and I actually wear the hood sometimes. When I'm really cold, I'll put the hood up, and it actually helps. It's
Yeah, they are
definitely
massively gigantic, basically fleece lined hoodies, very thick fabric. I've worn mine out on the back deck in Colorado winter, and I was not cold at all. So if you get really cold winters, they're nice to have.
Sagar says hi from Iran. Welcome, Saga. I hope I'm saying that right. Oh, Miriam, this is Bella. That's my cat in the background. Can you see her?
Yeah, we see your fur popping up.
Yeah, that's
Bella
her.
is so cute.
She's so cute. You know, there's this thing about animals um, being able to calibrate to their humans. And
Mm-hmm.
I've had a rough couple of weeks. I'm better today than I have been, but she has stuck by me. It's like she just won't leave my side, and I'm glad actually. It's cheered me up. Okay, Siobhan Huggins, the Siobhan Huggins, and all of her amazing citizen science. Let's hear about your fasting. How did it come about? What are you doing? What are you finding? What's working?
Yeah, so it came about. I don't actually remember how the conversation started, but I was talking to Heidi, who works at American Ketone, and she had talked before about doing ketone fasts, which is basically water fasting, but then you add in exogenous ketones, which is a drinkable ketone. So normally you produce your own ketones as a byproduct of fat, but you can also take either precursors, which go to your liver and then you make ketones, or what American Ketone is a bioidentical, so it's just immediately available. So I was really curious about it, and I had been wanting to get back into fasting because I tend to just do really well in terms of swelling, in terms of leaning out a little bit. If I'm fasting like once a week, and I'm thinking about like in the long term, because usually what I do is once a week, like 36 to 48 hours. But then after a while, I'll want to take a break from it. But then, like over time, over a few months, some of those benefits will lessen a little bit. So it's like, okay, what's my maintenance phase going to be here while I need a break? But in this case, I'm again doing that once a week, although I'm actually doing a second one. So when I talked to Heidi about it, I was like, yeah, I'll do once a week. But, if I get into it and I start wanting to fast more often than that, then I'll go ahead, just listen to my body. And so I did a 43-hour fast from Monday evening all the way over to, when was it? Wednesday at 3 p.m. Yeah. So I did that, and I ate a couple normal meals after. All was good. And during the fast, it was good too. So I usually do fat supplemented fasting because I find water fasting really difficult at this point. I used to be able to do it a lot easier, and I can't any longer. And I've spoken to some people, and they said, yeah, based on how you respond to water fasting, you probably shouldn't be doing longer water fasts anymore anyway. So with the ketone fasting, I found it was similar to fat fasting in that I wasn't hungry, or if I did get hungry, I would just sip on a little bit more of the ketones, and that hunger went away. I had normal energy levels. I slept really well. So all's looking good so far. And the most exciting thing is that I ate 2 meals on Wednesday, and then on Thursday I had my first meal. And I was just looking through like the fridge and the freezer and the stuff in my cabinets, and I was like, none of this sounds any good. I don't really want anything. So then I decided to start another fast today, and I'll be fasting until probably around 3 p.m. tomorrow. And yeah, so it's not long enough to see any impact in terms of like weight loss or inches or anything like that. But there is an interesting change so far, which is I did take measurements and weight and also glucose and ketones over the weekend, Friday to Sunday, while I was getting started as a bit of a baselining, see where I am. And my ketones in the morning were unusually low at that time, like 0.8, 0.7 to zero point 0.9 millimoles per liter, which is fine. But for me, for my mental health and feeling my best, I prefer up at 2. So it is about not quite where I wanted to be, less than half of the amount that I prefer to stay at. And part of that, I think, was just what I was eating, just not eating enough fat, probably not eating enough in general, which is my constant struggle. So I have been working a bit at that. But so I started the fast on Monday evening. So I took 5 grams of the ketones. Then in the morning, I took 10 grams because I was going into my lymphatic appointment. And it's like, okay, let's try and get ketones up really high during that time. And then
And
throughout
these
the
are
rest
all
of the day.
liquids. These are all
Yes.
liquid ketones.
Yeah, it's liquid. So I just mix it into water, add some ice, and it's kind of sour, which I really like. Most of the drinks I usually drink are sour, so I've been enjoying it. And so 20 grams of ketones over that Tuesday, and then I didn't have any on Wednesday. And on Thursday morning, I had 10 grams just throughout the day to kind of sustain it. And then this morning, I checked my morning ketones. So remember, over the weekend before I started this experiment, my ketones were 0.7 to 0.9. And this morning, they were 3.6. So huge. And I haven't had, the last time I had ketones was like 24 hours before. So they should be well out of my system by now. And I checked without having any ketones again. I checked before having mine, which I did just recently, so many hours beyond that, and my ketones were still above 3. So something is happening. I don't know what that's going to mean for the long-term effects, but mentally, I feel much better at this higher level. Somewhere above 2 is where I do better mentally in terms of focus and like nighttime anxiety and sleeping and stuff like that. So I'm very, very excited to see where this goes. It is possible that that's the only change and then nothing else changes whatsoever. But maybe something interesting will happen, which it's, I don't know, like a weird form of playing the lottery in a way. It's like, what is this citizen science experiment going to do?
Well, there's something about fasting because it's hard. Well, let me rephrase that. There are times when it can be easy and there are times when it's impossible.
Yeah, for sure.
But what's interesting, and I didn't know this until the past few years, is that there's such a concept as autophagy. Can you explain to people about autophagy? Because it blew my mind when I got what it was.
Yeah, so essentially the body, you can kind of think of it in terms of two different phases. One of which is building things up. So that's anabolic. It's sometimes you'll hear about mTOR, which is one of those signals. Insulin is related to the building up phase. And then there's another phase that's breaking things down. So that's catabolic. Sometimes, although not as much as mTOR, you'll hear about things like AMPK. So there's these two phases, and ideally, we should be cycling through them occasionally, maybe even once in the day. So while you're sleeping, breaking things down, and then with meal times, you're building things up as you're getting protein in. And autophagy is a form of breaking things down. So it's the body breaking down old proteins, malformed proteins, tissue that's not quite correct, things like that. And then when the next phase comes along, you have that opportunity to build tissue up again. So one of the things we know we can do to stimulate autophagy is fasting. Potentially when you're deeper in ketosis in general, that might be happening to some level. So with ketogenic diets, for example, or fasting in general, there may be one question of like, wait, so if I'm in ketosis, does that mean I'm going to constantly be breaking things down? Like, how do I stop losing weight? How do I make sure I'm not losing muscle, blah, blah, blah. And the thing with that is that protein and any amount of carb will stimulate mTOR. And that means you're going to have regular building up phases too. And with healthy people, like some athletes, for example, they're entering brief moments of ketosis and then coming back out of it. So normal phases in between these are important. We want a little bit of autophagy happening, preferably regularly, and then plenty of building up too, because that mTOR, it's not all like stimulating fat gain and stuff like that. It's also the synapses in the brain and muscle and bone. So we need that healthy balance between the two. So fasting can be one way to do that, especially if we're struggling to get into deeper ketosis, or we're not on a ketogenic diet, or have some metabolic health problems that may be inhibiting that.
And my way of talking about it, now you're going to see the real difference between me and Siobhan, is it's like Pac-Man. Does anybody, I'm dating myself. Pac-Man is
People still play Pac-Man, by the way.
Yeah, where you got Pac-Man eating all these little things. And so autophagy, the image that I have about autophagy is it's like Pac-Man. There are all these cells, and this cell comes along and goes whoosh and eats it up. And I'm like, oh, good, gone. Her explanation is much better.
Well, no, I like yours too, because it's good to understand the details of things, but it's also good to have visual imagery that you can actually work on and actually understand what was just said.
Heidi says original ketone. That's the name of the ketone. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So that Heidi is the same. It's the same Heidi I just mentioned. So the product is original ketone, and I've had experiences with different ketones, because sometimes when I'm at low carb conferences, I'll try a new one that's up and stuff like that. Some of them I don't like as much. Some of them have caused weird mood effects for me, and I don't know why. So I have like a handful of ones that I like and I trust. And original ketone is definitely one of those. So I'm happy to experiment with them.
And I have to say that Siobhan got me into doing some exogenous ketones a while ago when I was trying to manage the central lymphatic dysfunction that I had developed. And so I think that's when we started it. Anyway, then I started it, but original ketone was really good. I tried a couple of different ones and paid for them all out of pocket. And the other ones were bitter. Original ketones were really good. And I like sour too. I don't mean sour. I mean, they were like, you know what? It had a chemical taste. That's what it was. It wasn't that it was bitter. It was chemically.
Yeah, and that's the thing with a lot of ketones, with like the esters and the alcohol forms, where they're precursors. So you're not actually drinking ketones, you're drinking a precursor that has to go to the liver, and then you get ketones out of it. Is they often don't taste very good. So they're often described as like a rocket fuel taste.
Yeah,
and if you're just looking for the effect, that's fine. You kind of pinch your nose and take your medicine. But it is nice, especially when doing an experiment like this, where it's like, oh, this is actually really tasty, especially because I'm sipping it over the course of the day. So I'm constantly tasting it. So the fact that it is like, it somewhat reminds me of like Sour Patch Kids, which I used to eat a lot. It's not quite that sour, but just really refreshing and crisp in a way. And sometimes on non-fasting days, I'll combine it with like a flavored sparkling water. And that's really good too.
Oh yeah, that's good. Well, we're sort of just chatting about what's current, and I think the fasting thing comes and goes, but I think it's an interesting experiment, and I think we should do something about it, maybe after the holidays. Like as a community, I'd like to do something with it. Maybe we can get Heidi to come in and do something with us. Heidi,
yeah, that would be fun.
Heidi, it would be great to have you come back. We miss you. Okay, Wendy says, I tried it and I have a question. Go ahead and post your question.
Post the question, and then either me or Catherine can answer it, or Heidi can, because she's in the chat. And Heidi just gave a thumbs up in the chat, so it sounds like we can bring her in.
Oh, hi, Becky from Oklahoma. Welcome. We've been talking about fasting. Siobhan has been doing a citizen science project, and she's been fasting using ketones, which is great. All right, Wendy, I don't see Wendy's question. So I think we'll go into our what's new and coming up with lipedema part, which is we have a events this week.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you tell them about the Perrin Perry thing?
Yeah, so during the event, we had both Perry Nicholson and Perrin, Dr. Perrin, and they're talking largely about different methods of stimulating the lymphatics. So Dr. Perrin has the Perrin technique, which is a lot about stimulating the central lymphatics and doing that to help with the brain lymphatics with things like brain fog or fatigue or things like that. He works a lot with chronic fatigue syndrome and long COVID. So we don't know if it helps in everybody with lipedema, but we do know a lot of people who deal with similar things in terms of brain fog and fatigue. So we brought in him to talk about that, and also just understanding how a lot of these systems work, because a lot of people don't know, including a lot of doctors. So we always want to bring up the understanding of that. And then Perry Nicholson talks a lot about also how lymphatics work, and helping people understand. If you understand how things work, it can help a lot with troubleshooting if you're having issues. And he also talks about the Big Six, which is a form of self-manual lymphatic drainage that's super simple, like 12 to 15 minutes max, is not very long. But we have found in the community that people are actually finding it useful, even with something that simple. Like, that's what I always like to see, is techniques that people can do, doesn't cost anything, and is helpful and easy to understand. Like, that is the ideal. So Perry Nicholson talked a lot about that. And unfortunately, during the event, Dr. Perrin wasn't able to come in for a live Q&A. He's based out of the UK, so time zones, plus he is he has clients, so he has a busy schedule as well. But we decided to have a bonus Q&A with both Perrin and Perry, and that is going to be on October 15th at 1 p.m. Eastern, and this is going to be for attendees of the event. So if you have signed up for the event, if you attended, or if you're going to watch the recordings later, then this is going to be open for you. The way to access it is on the 15th. You would just go into Obvio, the same place that you went for the event, just sign in with your email, and then it'll be a button on the dashboard that you can click, and then it'll pop up and bring you right in.
I'm so psyched. These are two amazing thinkers. I just want to say that Dr. Perrin, I have come to appreciate the lymphatic system in ways that I never would even have imagined. It is the most neglected system in our bodies by the healthcare. So what ended up happening is Dr. Perrin did his research, and he's an osteopath, and he also has a PhD and on the lymphatic system, and discovered that our head, our brain, our face, our neck is loaded with lymphatic vessels and nodes. And I can't understand it, but the general consensus was that there was no lymphatic activity in the head and brain. How could that be? That to me is absolutely astoundingly stupid. Like, how could you have an entire system, and why would it cut off at the neck? But anyway, so he was doing this research in 1989. 89. We're talking many years ago. So I'm geeking out, and I should calm down because it blows me away. So getting Dr. Perrin and Dr. Perry together is just amazing. Dr. Perry, he he was in a mess. He's a chiropractor, but he's very focused on the neuromuscular system, and then he got sick. He got really, really sick like cancer. They removed his thyroid. And anyway, he tells the story much better than I do. And he realized he had this complex multi system screaming. His body was screaming at him. And so he found ways to heal. He's absolutely amazing. So the two of them are going to get together. And hopefully, if you came to the event, come. This is part of the event. This is a bonus. And okay.
And just to comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Helen says, what's your take on diuretics?
So I'm not super into the like drug and supplement side. I don't spend a lot of time there, but my understanding is that with lipedema specifically, they don't tend to recommend diuretics because it can, like, it does cause water loss, but it doesn't, it like makes the remaining fluid thicker, which can
makes it sludge.
Yeah, so I don't think it's recommended for lipedema specifically.
So Wendy, this is a very technical question, and I think I don't know if this can get answered, but let's put it up here. I took 5 grams original ketones. What's GKI?
It's a glucose ketone index.
Oh, okay.
So glucose ketone index is the relationship between glucose and ketones. So with things like cancer, for example, they tend to be looking for a GKI of 1. So in nanomoles per liter, glucose and ketone levels are the same. She says, I took 5 grams of original ketone, GKI 4.0, and then after 30 minutes, GKI dropped, so they're coming closer together at this point, to 3.3, but then an hour later it was back up to 6.7. What is your experience, and do I need more of it? So Heidi might be the best person to answer this, but I think the response is going to depend partially on what's happening in between that point. So are you eating something? Are you drinking something? What are you eating or drinking? And then potentially your metabolic health as well. But the way that I think of exogenous ketones is almost like priming the pump. So like in the short term, what I found is maybe it goes up a little and then maybe it'll stay there sometimes, maybe it'll drop back down. But more what I'm looking for is over a longer term. Like what I described, my ketones this past weekend started out pretty low, started doing the ketone fasting, and now they're coming back up on their own with that almost like priming is how I'm thinking of it. So yeah, I would be curious what Heidi's take on that is, because I haven't been plotting the curve. I'm mostly testing in the morning. Right now I'm trying to test right before I take the ketones and then a couple hours after. And then some point between, like in the afternoon, basically. So I'm not testing like 8 times in a row, tracking it as it goes up and then back down. But yeah, so that is I should try that next time and see what happens.
Yes. Track it, and let's track it and report on it. We're running a little bit late, but I want to talk about the master class coming up. We have a master class coming up. Siobhan's going to put the link in the chat. And it is Surgery Simplified, Lipedema Surgery Simplified. And it's on next Saturday, a week from tomorrow, the 19th at 3 p.m. And it's going to be actually a long one, which is why we're calling it a masterclass. It's going to be a few hours. After the event, a lot of people have asked us, they want to know more about the surgery. And it tends to be a question we get a lot. And we haven't been doing much about it, but we have pivoted a bit, and now we're doing more about it. So we are going to be doing this masterclass to come find out about what is surgery, what does it consist of, What do you need to know? What do you need to do to prep for it? How can you get insurance to cover it? It can get covered. It doesn't always get covered, but it's possible to get it covered. Um, yeah, I think that I think that covers what we're going to be doing. We have Michelle Jacqua, who is the director of our concierge program. We have a concierge program on with surgery, but she's a nurse navigator and an expert. Her expertise is in insurance. So if you're interested, you don't want to miss this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is something I saw people asking about at the event, is just trying to figure out more about surgery so they can determine if it's a path that they want to explore further. Because for some
Yeah.
people, they look at what prep is needed or how much it might cost or the path that they need to take it, get it covered by insurance, or even just what is it going to do. So we already know lipedema reduction surgery is not a cure, but for some people, it does help with mobility and pain reduction and addressing some of the disfiguring nature of lipedema. So if someone has already undergone conservative care like me, doesn't have any pain, doesn't have mobility problems, for me, it's like, I'll take a pass. Keep it open as an option in the future potentially, but I don't think it would benefit my quality of life. But for someone potentially, like, let's say they have a lot of lipedema tissue, it's impacting their gait, it's putting pressure on their joints, they still have some remaining pain, even with conservative care. For that person, that response might be, oh, this could actually be really helpful for me. So getting more of that to figure out get that information in your head and start navigating it is really helpful. So I think this upcoming masterclass is going to be really, really good.
Oh, and the link.
Yeah, I did put the link in the chat. So
yeah,
I'll
no,
go ahead.
let me just put it here so that people can get it. It's simple.
Perfect.
Yeah, so you can go and you can sign up. It's free. But we're doing something just a tad bit different on this one. We have the replay. We don't always have the replays available, but we have the replay available with a new book that we were just publishing on what you need to know about surgery. And there's a small charge for the combination of those if you want them. But the webinar is free. You can come, no charge. I think that covers it.
Yeah.
We're late, but it's been fun. Thanks, ladies. As always, lovely, lovely to be with you. And we will see you sometime this week. Hopefully, we'll see you at the no, that we'll see them next Friday before we see them on Saturday, but maybe on something else. So you never know. All right.